We have a Norwegian term called døgnvill, which basically means being out of tune with day and night. And as of right now, it's 2:30 in the morning. So this is most likely the definition of being døgnvill. I'm hiking back to where I left the car last night, but my day just started a couple of hours ago. Falling out of the normal sleep schedule is something I voluntarily do up in the Arctic, for a few different reasons. The islands I'm spending most of my time on is heavily occupied by tourists during the summer months, with a bunch of people wanting to see the midnight sun and unique landscapes. But there is also flocks of typical camp events, the type of tourist that drives from location to location but mostly stays in the car. There is also a bunch of hotspots, well-known hikes, towns and viewpoints, which brings me to one of the reasons why my day and night is a little disorientated right now. In the middle of the night and early hours, even the hottest of hotspots are mostly free of people, making it possible to actually enjoy them and not just be another one in the crowd. But the lack of people is just an added bonus. For me, the real reason is the lighting. I moved up here to live in the car and learn photography back in 2019. And I ended up staying for more than a year. So coming back here after a few years has passed, it feels a bit like coming home. Not much have changed here, but me and the car definitely has. I did my first year at these islands in a stock car with a setup for storage and a roof tent. And the original reason why I did this in the first place was to figure out everything I wanted to learn using my camera. And to achieve this, I didn't really care about how I was able to fund everything, so I applied for a bunch of jobs before heading north and ended up getting a job at a rental company in one of the major cities here. And knowing that I had a job up there was never any real risk for me to drive to the other side of the country, even though I had never been there before. And with that job, I was able to just do whatever I felt like on my spare time in probably one of the prettiest places in the country. And this setup is exactly the same that I'm using when I'm down south, just with a different job. But living full-time in this car down south in a more urban surrounding isn't really doing anything for me. But being a bit more self-sustained when it comes to the financial part of traveling, I'm able to showcase and travel a lot more in places like this. The final thing that happened to the car before I headed north again was mostly a cosmetic change, with some functionality as well. With a full cam setup in the back, I've never really had a view out of the rear window, and I tend to use the live view from the rear camera whilst driving instead. And using the otherwise empty space as a mount for traction boards allowed me to do a bunch of different mounts as well. Like I've mentioned before, this all started with a cracked windshield. But just to take that out, I had to dismantle a bunch of parts, and since I had the ball rolling, I kept on taking off everything from the roof as well. And since I was dealing with the cracked windshield, I decided that I would also deal with the cracked glass roof that I probably stepped on in 2020. The rear latch is modified with aluminium plates and painted with bed liner, and that also applies for the opening where the glass roof once used to be, with a plan to feed a bunch of cables and air from the heater through the roof instead. But as of right now, I'm kinda sick of building and modifying the car, so I just had to get out there and actually use the car. So all the future modifications is put on ice while I'm out here using the car for what it's intended to do. When I was driving up here a couple of weeks ago, I saw a few drops of diesel underneath the car when I was parked, so I assumed that I might have a leak somewhere, but I was never completely sure. I did assume that the leak came from the cheap diesel filter I fitted last year, but when I pulled into camp tonight, I was completely sure. I'm not 100% sure, but it does look like the leak came from the drain plug underneath the filter. The leak wasn't really that big until tonight, but when I was standing here on idle trying to figure out where the leak came from, I made a puddle of diesel right here. So I'm just going to burn that off so I don't leave anything on the ground. Up here there's not really any stores selling parts for my car. But last week I was down south filming a wedding, and since I thought the filter might be the cause of the leak, I bought one and just posted it to myself with the address of a local grocery store. Not that changing a filter is a big deal, but it feels very nice being so comfortable with the car after spending so much time working on the car myself, that I'm able to keep the car rolling even though something like this occurs while I'm traveling. And by the way, when I left in a hurry, I kinda forgot that I hadn't upgraded the gas struts for the rear latch yet. But as for now, this is the best I can do. So if you know where I can buy strips for these with the same size, just with a higher rating, let me know.